Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 1, verses 9 to 10. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, See, this is new, it hath been already of old time, which was before us? So pretty much everything we see now in some form or fashion has existed in the past, contrary to popular belief, contrary to what these Edomites or so-called white people would have you believe. Not just physical objects, but events, situations as well. And I opened up the video with this verse to preface a little bit of this video from the Canadian Preppers YouTube channel titled Breaking News, 5 million soldiers to be mobilized. And I'm going to start the video at the 26-minute and 50-second mark. And in this part of the video, the Canadian Prepper is going to talk about how cannibalism has a good chance of coming back due to the looming global food shortages. And we know that famines are prophesied to take place in the last days which we're living in, and best believe that cannibalism is coming back as well. And all throughout the scriptures, there are examples of instances of cannibalism that the Israelites have gone through during their different captivities. This is Romans chapter 15, verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. And I'm going to go into a few precepts to show different examples of cannibalism that has taken place through the history of you Israelites, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. And they were written aforetime for our learning right now, for the elect of the nation of Israel who have returned back to their power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, and are doing everything they can to stay in the good graces of their power so they can be saved from these calamities, as it says, that we through patience and comfort, the faith in the patience of the saints, relying on Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi to be our protection in these days of the scriptures, might have hope that if we keep up our end of the bargain and being faithful to our power, the Most High is going to keep his word and keep us from these famines and cannibalism to come, which is going to affect the wicked of our people who are hard-headed and refuse to return back to their power. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. And this is a future prophecy. And that sword can go into a whole host of weapons: bats, clubs, sticks, knives, literal swords, machetes, brass knuckles, Molotov cocktails, and especially in the United States of America, the modern day sword, the gun, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation, food shortages, famines. Once these food shortages really start hitting and inflation becomes hyperinflation, hey, people are going to get crazy out here. They're going to ransack the stores. And once the stores run out, what are they going to do? Start going into people's houses and taking what they have left. And then when the food runs out, what do you think's going to happen? Hey, they're going to start taking and eating each other. And like I said, throughout the scriptures, there are many examples of cannibalism that has taken place through hard times, through the history of the Israelites. And it's going to be no different during these times. Remember, there's no new thing under the sun. Everything written aforetime was written for our learning. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28. I'm going to start at verse 53. And this is dealing with the curses that would befall the Israelites for not following after their power or the laws, statutes, and commandments, and following after the ways of the heathens. Hey, we would be punished. And I believe this account is speaking of what would take place during 70 AD when the Roman Edomites, besieged Jerusalem. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters. And there were accounts of cannibalism that took place during the siege of Jerusalem during 70 AD. So as it clearly says, hey, people eating their sons and daughters, which Yahweh thy power hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress me. And we're living in the reincarnated Roman Empire right now, the last leg of the fourth beast in Daniel chapter 2, those iron toes mixed with miry clay, the reincarnated Roman Empire, the NATO-EU alliance that the U.S. is a part of, and the U.S. is the main part of it. And these American Roman soldiers are going to besiege you Israelites again. Hey, there are plans like Rex 84, which deals with unrest with the Southern Kingdom, or you so-called Negroes, you so-called African Americans, and Operation Cable Splicer, which deals with the Northern Kingdom, you so-called Latinos and Native Americans. A state of martial law will take place, and a lot of places where you Israelites dwell are going to be cut off and surrounded by soldiers. You won't be able to leave, and a lot of things won't be able to come in. What does it say back in 2 Esdras chapter 15? A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Food's going to dwindle, and then what? People are going to start turning on each other, killing each other, eating each other, even eating their own children again. Verse 56, the tender and delicate woman among you, which that's hard to say for a lot of you Israelite women today, especially you Judite women or so-called black women, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground. For delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, which we can see applies to you Israelite women, and toward her son and toward her daughter. Verse 57, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, sons and daughters, and even newborn babies, for she shall eat them for want of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. Hey, all them children you Israelite women have, hey, especially you women of the Southern Kingdom, hey, you see them as a meal ticket right now to get those welfare and child support benefits when the times of the food shortages, the famines, hey, they're going to be a literal meal ticket. A lot of you Israelites out of want and need are going to butcher your children and eat them. And that's all the judgments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai for the wickedness you've been committing, being rebellious and not wanting to return to your power, going down to Egypt, going down to your enemies, these Edomites, for help. Now let's go to another account, and this is dealing with when the Syrians besieged the Northern Kingdom. 2 Kings 6 verses 24 to 30. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. And again, everything written aforetime was written for our learning. Hey, our enemies, these heathens, beginning with these Edomites, are going to besiege and surround us again. But the only difference is going to be that the elect are going to be able to make it through it. As it says in Isaiah 65 around verse 13, my servants shall eat and drink and rejoice. But as for the wicked of our people, globally and 2/3 in the United States of America, you're going to have no protective hedge over you. You're just going to be completely open to these heathens and the judgments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which through these accounts we can see that cannibalism is going to be a main part of it. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. It was getting so bad that people were literally selling dove shit to eat, even considering eating dove shit. It's going to be no different in these times. When these famines are really dire out here, you're going to see people eating and drinking whatever they can. Polluted water, dog and animal shit, dead animals, leather from belts, you name it. And as we're about to read, and as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help me, help my lord, O king. And he said, If Yahweh do not help thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor or out of the winepress? And this is exactly what a lot of you Israelites are going to hear if you happen to come across a man of the Lord during the times of Jacob's trouble. Hey, you spent this time of liberty scoffing at the men of the Lord, the prophets, out on the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up these video epistles online saying, oh, this would never happen. That's just a fantasy book. But when you're in the depths of it, you truly will live out Ezekiel 33 verse 33, where it says, And when these things shall come to pass, and lo, they will come, then shall they know a prophet had been among them. Hey, you're going to be looking for answers, but we also know during these times that the famine of the word, where you won't be able to find the word, is going to take place. And if you do happen to find a prophet and ask, what are we going to do? I'm ready to learn. You're going to get a response similar to this, and you're going to get that Jeremiah 15 response. Those to the sword, to the sword, to the famine, to the famine, to the captivity, to the captivity, to the death, etc., etc. And the only news you're going to hear is the news of your judgment. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. And they shall eat the flesh of their sons and daughters. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. And you niggas are going to be grimy like this during those times. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. So another example of cannibalism taking place for the disobedience of the nation of Israel. Let's go to yet another one. And this is dealing when the Babylonians besieged the southern kingdom. This is Lamentations chapter 4, verses 9 to 10. They that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger. Because if you get killed off by getting shot up, stabbed, beaten to death, or anything like that, hey, it's going to be pain for a moment, but you're going to be good. You're going to be back in the spirit world. But starving to death's a whole nother animal. Your organs and body parts shut off one by one and eat themselves to keep you alive. It's a slow, painful, and agonizing death. And most people, especially you Americans nowadays, can't even go half a day without eating something. A lot of y'all don't fast. Y'all eat highly processed food, fast food, junk food, all that. So when that's all taken away, you people are going to lose your goddamn minds. And also, this is a heavily meat-based society. People, we're supposed to eat what? 60 to 70% greens and maybe 30% meat. There's nothing wrong with eating meat, but we're supposed to have a nice balanced diet. But the majority of you people, and hey, I'm guilty of it myself, and I've been trying to work on eating more greens and less meat. But the majority of you people, you just consume meat after meat, beef, chicken, pork, all that. So your bodies and your minds are acclimated to that meat, that taste of meat, that smell of meat. So when that meat's taken away, What are you going to do? You're going to look for any kind of meat you can get your hands on. Dog meat, cat meat, bird meat, rat meat, hey, people meat as well. For these pine away, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children, boiling their children up to make a tasty jamal or a hay-hor soup out of it. And notice it keeps mentioning how a lot of women are the ones that are killing off their children to eat them. Hey, you women are more, especially you women of the tribes, you women are more wicked than any point in human history. Hey, through feminism and all that shit, thinking you're better than a man, treating men like shit, dealing with multiple men, committing adultery, using the courts and welfare to just live deliciously out here. Hey, you've got more women than you do men. So the majority of these wicked Israelites that are going to go through these horrific things are going to be women. And you women love your children. So the Most High is going to take away what you love the most, make you eat your damn kids. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children. They were their meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people. Now let's go to another account. This is Jeremiah 19, verse 9. And I will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and they shall eat every one the flesh of his friend in the siege and straitness, wherewith their enemies and they that seek their lives shall straiten them. This is again speaking about the times of the Neo-Babylonians coming against the southern kingdom. But hey, it also goes into future prophecy as well. These things will happen again. Again, there is no new thing under the sun. That which has been is that which shall be. And these things were written aforetime for our learning, as we can see through different captivities and heathens coming against us for Israel's wickedness. Cannibalism has been one of the main ways Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua has judged you Israelites. So now, during this final captivity, this final time of judgment, do you think it's going to be any different? No, it's actually going to be the worse now than any time before. As it says in Jeremiah 30, verse 7, it is a time like no other, even the times of Jacob's trouble. And it also says the same thing in Daniel chapter 12. There's never been another point in history as the times we're coming into. And even the Archangel Michael is going to have to get involved to help protect the elect. But as for you wicked Israelites, you're going to have no protection. And if you think cannibalizing your children, cannibalizing each other is bad enough, it gets even worse than that. This is Isaiah chapter 9, verses 19 to 20. Through the wrath of Yahweh of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as of the fuel of the fire, being the fuel of the fire of these different judgments out here. The famines, the pestilences, the race wars, the civil wars, martial law, and ultimately the fuel of the fire for those nuclear missiles when they're shot to the ends of the earth during World War III, in which the United States of America is going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth by those nuclear missiles. No man shall spare his brother. Back in 2 Esdras chapter 15, verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the force of the sword and spoil their goods due to the lack of bread, food shortages, famines, and when the food runs out, what comes next? Cannibalism. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. It's going to get so bad out here to where people are going to start cannibalizing their own bodies. These are the terrors of the scriptures. This is the terrors of the judgments that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai is about to bring to the wicked of our people, and hey, to you heathens as well. It's like we always tell you, sincere Akim and Akwat out there. Now more than ever, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, doing whatever you can to stay in the good graces of your power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. so you can have that protective hedge over you and be saved from these calamities of Jacob's trouble, which are quickly coming our way. Apostle Tahar deemed 2022 to be the year of Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi turning things up, and we can see that things have turned up exponentially, so we can expect 2023 to be even worse. You've even got regular people out here speculating that 2023 is going to be the year from hell, and you've even had David Beasley, the head of the UN World Food Program, say that the world is facing famines of biblical proportions, that it's going to be a perfect storm upon a perfect storm. And already in some places, such as in Eastern Africa, you've got people on the verge of starvation. But now let's get to this clip. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And remember, everything written aforetime was written for our learning, and there is no new thing under the sun. Cannibalism took place in the past, and it's especially going to take place now.
I said I was going to talk about the Holodomor the other day, and I forgot about it. The Holodomor, if you don't know, was the Ukrainian famine. I'm not going to get into the politics of what caused it and this and that, but I would encourage you to go and research some of the stories of how people dealt with that famine. And if you want to have trouble sleeping tonight, just read some of the stories about mothers who had several children who were faced with all of their children dying unless they were forced to feed one of their children to all the other children. Okay, cannibalism is...
Oh, come on. Hey, let's just reread a few of these precepts real quick. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yahweh thy power hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children. They were their meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people.
Was a reality in the 20th century, whether that was in the Ukrainian famine or the Chinese famine. And this is all the more reason to take...
And it's going to be a reality in the 21st century during the American famine, the Israelite famine, the famine that's going to hit you other heathens as well, with cannibalism as well.
Food preparedness very, very seriously, especially in the modern day, where we've become so accustomed to eating meat. Now, a lot of people don't think about this, okay? That the fact that we consume so much meat in our diets, so many people are adapted to that. They don't know where it comes from. They don't care where it comes from. They just eat it. And don't you think that the sudden lack of that kind of protein is going to have an effect on people, that people's satiety is not going to be fulfilled by whatever other alternate means? Don't you think that when things get down to the wire, people are going to become the animals they truly are? And this is the thing, is that in our whitewashed society, it's very easy to look at people and, they look very clean and, they look very nice and they don't look animalistic at all, and just say to yourself, there's no way they would ever descend down that evolutionary tree again and become Wendigos, as the Aboriginals say, Wendigo psychosis. That point of, and the reason why they call it that, the Wendigo was a mythical figure in Aboriginal lore that would consume the flesh of a human, and in consuming the flesh, he would grow twice his size. And every time he consumed somebody, he would grow twice his size, so he would never be fulfilled, you see. So he would keep having to eat more. And this is something that the Aboriginals used to discourage cannibalism in times of famine. Because what it all means is that if you're willing to go to that extent to survive, if you're willing to cross that line, then you're willing to do anything. And it's like
a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. And again, no man shall spare his brother.
Immediate breakdown of morals and ethics and everything that makes us human being. So unfortunately, I think that if times got really bad, you would see terminus, like we seen in The Walking Dead. You would see that. I mean, I think it's going to be far, far worse than that. Because again, there ain't
a time like no other, even the time of Jacob's trouble.
Many vegans around nowadays. I mean, yeah, you hear about it more because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And there's definitely a movement towards that. But the people who do eat meat eat a lot of it. And they become accustomed to it. And guess what? There's 8 billion people out there, okay? And I'm painting a gruesome picture for you, but I'm hoping that this motivates you to look into having food storage, number one. That's the easiest thing you can do. But also finding a means to grow food, knowing how to hunt your food, and at the very least, knowing how to fish. I mean, fish can provide you with all the fats that you need, with protein. They're a great protein and fat source. You pair that with a carbohydrate. Most people can fish. It's not that hard. It's not the huge commitment of time and energy that hunting is. Mind you, the payoff isn't as good either because you don't get as much meat. But just prepare for this. This is something that will happen again if we face conditions like that. Now, that arguably was a politically induced famine. But there may have been some elements that were just due to miscalculation and not pure intentionality. However, regardless of how it happened, it could happen again. And people are going to be faced with those dilemmas, those ethical dilemmas. Do I watch all my children die, all 6, or...
Damn, man.
Do I feed 1 to the remaining 5? I know, it's dark, it's bleak, but that's what survival is. Survival is not going to be pretty. Survival is going to be the most horrific possible thing you can imagine. Ukraine times 10.
And notice lately that in a lot of media, they've been showing a lot of movies and TV shows dealing with cannibalism. You had something on Netflix called the Santa Monica Diet or the Santa Clara Diet. Of course, you had all these zombie shows like the Walking Dead with Terminus, which dealt with people eating other people. Then you had the zombies, who of course ate people. There was a big controversy a couple of months ago about how some newspaper site or Twitter page or some major platform talked about how cannibalism is a trending topic. And then just recently you had a movie come out called Bones and All, which deals with a so-called black woman, a Judite woman, and an Edomite man or so-called white man, go figure, who are on the run because they're both cannibals in love. And the elites are throwing you subtle hints out there that cannibalism is going to take place. And then through the scriptures, we know for damn sure that cannibalism is going to take place. And a lot of you wicked Israelites, they're going to be the fuel for the fire, take a heavy part in this cannibalism to come. Hey, all them children you look at right now, all them children you're about to buy some wicked Christmas presents for, hey, soon they're going to become the pot roast. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala. Until next time, Shalom.